at the A5. There's been yet another accident blocking off the inside lane. What's not helping is there was a crash earlier on involving two cars and a lorry, adding to queues, and it's really on the A449 as you divert through Penkridge. On the Essex stretch of the M25, the inside lane's blocked clockwise 27 to 28, the M11 round to the A12 following an accident, and in East London, north of Newbury Park, the High Street at Fulwell Cross blocked northbound at Westminster Gardens by an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word. Very, very good evening to you. Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. After years of soup-slinging, motorway mayhem and Van Gogh vandalism, Just Stop Oil is finally calling it a day. But why? Is it because the eco-zealots essentially wrote Sir Keir Starmer's energy policies? And woke new guidelines by the Sentencing Council for illegal immigrants have been slammed today as two-tiered. Astonishingly, they recommend watering down prison terms for illegal immigrants if they are first-time offenders to less than 12 months, which would allow them to dodge deportation. And Sir Keir Starmer was in Paris today, chumming up to Zelensky and Macron to secure a peacekeeping force. But the elephant in the room, of course, is that if Europe could never go to war without the help of Donald Trump's USA. Europe needs Trump, but Trump thinks Europe is freeloading. Where does this leave the special relationship? Well, all of that to come, but first is your news headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. The top story tonight at 7 o'clock. Well, the Prime Minister says Europe is mobilising on a scale not seen in decades to back peace in Ukraine. He's been in Paris today for a major summit with more than 30 nations discussing security guarantees for Ukraine after a peace deal is signed. Earlier, the French president announced that the UK and France will deploy troops as part of a reassurance force once a deal is reached. He went on to say that the meeting today has unanimously agreed that now is not the time for lifting any sanctions against Russia. While speaking at a press conference after that summit, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated his commitment to peace.
Peace comes through strength. That was one of the main messages reasserted today and emphasised today all around the table and the meeting. Second, it means increasing the economic pressure on Russia, accelerating new, tougher sanctions. This is Europe mobilising together behind the peace process. on a scale that we haven't seen for decades. Backed by partners from around the world, we are determined to deliver a just and lasting peace, because we know that it is vital for Ukraine and Europe as a whole. And I am clear that it's also vital for Britain.
In other news, Rachel Reeves has defended her handling of the economy after she announced welfare cuts and squeezed Whitehall budgets yesterday in her spring statement. Labour, though, is bracing for backlash amid concerns 3 million families on incapacity benefits are set to be hit by the changes, while the OBR has halved its forecast for growth. But speaking to GB News earlier today, the Chancellor said she's not complacent about the challenges families are facing.
OBR forecast yesterday shows that the real household disposable income per person will be £500 greater at the end of the Parliament compared with the plans that I inherited. And obviously the last Parliament was the worst on record for living standards, and the OBR confirmed yesterday that real household disposable income will increase in every year of this Parliament. I recognise that the cost of living crisis continues to bite. I'm not complacent about the challenges that families face with their finance.
6 tourists have died after a submarine sank off the coast of Hurghada in Egypt in the Red Sea, with 39 others rescued. Local officials say the vessel was carrying 45 foreign passengers and 5 Egyptians when it went down around a kilometre offshore. The tourists on board were from Russia, India, Norway and Sweden. It comes just months after another tourist boat sank in the same area, killing 11 people. And 5 people have been injured in a stabbing near Amsterdam's Dam Square, according to Dutch police. The area has been cordoned off with an emergency helicopter and multiple ambulances deployed earlier today. A suspect has been arrested, though the motive at this stage is still unknown. There is no word yet on the condition of those that were hurt. The attack happened just before 3:30 this afternoon in the busy city centre. And British Steel is warning it may shut its blast furnaces in Scunthorpe, putting almost 3,000 jobs on the line and pushing the industry deeper into crisis. The firm says it can't survive without switching to electric arc furnaces and claims the government's offer of support falls far short of what's needed. Unions have slammed the move, though, as devastating and accused the company of holding ministers to ransom. The firm's owners say they're losing £700,000 a day, but the government insists its offer is fair and is urging the firm to think again. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup from me at 8 o'clock. Now, though, it's back to Martin.
Thank you, Sam, and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, after years of soup-slinging, motorway mayhem and Van Gogh vandalism, Just Stop Oil is finally calling it a day. The eco-activist group notorious for blocking roads and disrupting major events announced it will halt protests after Ed Miliband seemed to adopt their key demand, phasing out fossil fuels. Their swan song? One last demo in Parliament Square on April the 26th before they officially hang up their orange high-vis vests. But while the paint throwing and slow marching might be over, the group has warned this isn't the end of civil resistance. Well, a new, more radical strategy is apparently in the works. You'll be delighted to hear. And I'm now joined by Sue Houseman, a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Sue, welcome to the show. So what prompted Just Stop Oil to finally stop flinging orange paint about?
Thanks for having me on. The reason that we've changed our tactics today is that we've had success. You know, we've got no new oil licenses agreed by all parties, and as you say, Labour have taken that on board, but it's not the end for us because there's so much left to do. You know, the government are on track to deliver what they should be delivering, and our future's in peril. So it's time for us to just take stock of what we've achieved so far and where we're going to go, and look at plenty of the other crises that seem to be around at the moment and also require our attention.
So, Sue, you've just admitted there what I think many of us suspected. Just Stop Oil has just stopped because Ed Miliband has just stopped oil and he's just stopped gas. And it looks like today is going to stop steel as well in Britain. So ostensibly, the Labour Party has become the political wing of Just Stop Oil. Therefore, you guys are redundant.
I think the Labour Party are doing a very good job of helping the billionaires to get richer. And as you'll know, lots of ordinary people are really feeling the pinch here. And what we want to do is unite with every ordinary person to get a livable future. And so our tactics are to have a look at where we're being failed in the Houses of Parliament, where we're being failed by the media, might I say, and where we're being failed in the courts. Because at the moment, what's come to light for us in Just Stop Oil is that this is a huge issue that with our whole system in the UK and around the world. The drift to fascism, the uncertainty with war and the neoliberalism, you know, this drive to get more and more out of ordinary working people and to give more and more profits to rich. We've really got to look at this because this is what's underpegging the climate crisis.
But Sue, the reason that ordinary working people are so brassic and out of pocket is because of their energy bills. Net zero is making people net poorer, and we can't live off windmills and solar panels. It stops, the wind stops, the sun goes in. We'd be far better off if we just started oil. Start drilling, drill baby drill. Let's get that shale out of the ground, trillions of pounds worth of liquid gold underneath our feet. I can see you're blanching, but the fact of the matter is Britain has the highest energy prices in all of the Western world, and that's because of net zero. It's because we're just stopping oil.
I'm actually giggling at you there because obviously the way to bring our prices down is to move on to renewables. At the moment,
when would that happen?
We give money. Let me just finish. We give money to these oil companies who are making billions of pounds and paying out billions of pounds in dividends.
They get 85% taxed.
Just give me a second. We give them tax incentives. We let them off the hook. We just allow them. Our government gives them money back from the taxpayer. How can that be right?
But they get taxed 85%. There's an 85% windfall tax on anybody trying to start a new licence, which, by the way, they haven't even granted. And the answer isn't to be reliant on Putin or importation. We're in this insane position where, whether you like it or not, Sue, 70% of our entire energy demands in the country comes from fossil fuels, and that won't change anytime soon because we simply don't have enough dependable, reliable, cheap, green energy. Take the subsidies away and that sector dies.
We've got enough oil to keep us going while we move to renewables. And you talk about the issues there with steel. You know, we've known for 50 years that we need to do something about fossil fuels. The oil companies have known, the governments have known, the billionaires have known. But have they made the necessary steps? No. Are they taxing those billionaires to pay for the steps that need to be taken? No. Who's going to suffer? Ordinary working people, the people who work in steel, not the people who take billions out.
Nobody works in steel. It's all closing down. That's the point. And we're reliant, Sue, on importing steel now from China. China that powers its blast furnaces in a way that would appall people like yourself. All we do is offshore our manufacture of steel. We offshore our oil. We're importing oil from Norway that extracts oil from the same gas field we've got in the North Sea. It's insane.
And without Just Stop Oil, we'd have been giving away billions more to Equinor in order to drill again. Why are we paying people to take oil? And then why are we making ordinary people buy it back at market rates? It just is an absolute corrupt state. And I'd love your show to be doing some investigating into this. How can it be that our government is giving tax breaks to oil companies that are making billions?
They tax them at 85%, Sue.
People looked
Sue, there's an 85% windfall tax on every single drop of oil that comes out of the North Sea. How is that a tax break? It's the most punitive. It's so punitive, nobody wants to drill in those fields, even if they're allowed, which they're not, because Ed Miliband is Just Stop Oil personified.
It's so amusing to listen to you.
Why is it?
Everybody would take a cut in their electricity bills if we had a sensible move to renewables.
Yes, we would, and that hasn't happened, and it won't happen anytime soon, because renewable energy isn't cheaper, despite all the promises that was made by people like yourself. When do we get these mythical unicorn cheaper bills from green energy?
When we get a government who'll act in the interest of the people rather than the billionaires. If that had been happening 50 years ago, when we knew that the oil companies knew that fossil fuels were causing this catastrophe, if we'd started then, if we'd have started 10 years ago, if we'd have started 5 years ago, but what Just Stop Oil wanted is for them to start now and to really push for it. But what we realise is it's not that we can't do it. It's that there's no desire to do it. And the reason there's no desire to do it is because our politicians are owned by the fossil fuel company, our media are owned by millionaires who have big stakes in the fossil fuel industry. And they just keep telling us that we can't do it.
You admitted at the top of this interview, Sue, you admitted at the top of the interview that Just Stop Oil has wound its operations down because Ed Miliband has just stopped oil. He's made you redundant.
We're no longer calling for no new oil and gas licenses because it's been achieved, because we've been so successful.
Thanks to Ed Miliband.
And it's so amusing to hear you, because obviously Just Stop Oil have done a brilliant job, because everybody's heard of them, everybody knows about them. And given that we've made everybody poorer, we now need to redirect our attention to a broken system that is causing absolute misery to ordinary people. We're getting poorer and poorer year on year, and the billionaires are getting richer. And it's all tied up. The oil's tied up in that. Our waters, our rivers, our education systems, in every aspect of our services, money has been siphoned from the public purse into the hands of the billionaires. And that's why our last thing that we want to do with Just Stop Oil on the 26th of April is get to Parliament, because that's the centre of all this. Parliament's
on your side, Sue. Every major party agrees with you. They agree with net zero. They agree with suspending licences. They've stopped. They're filling concrete into our shale wells. You've won, and we're all getting colder and poorer. Well done.
We haven't won, because we're still burning that oil. And until we can start to use more renewables, until we can do things like give free buses to people who need them, so that they don't
and a free
have
unicorn
to keep
for every
running
viewer. Yeah.
When we start to do this, then Just Stop Oil won't need to do. But until then, we don't need to call for new oil and gas licenses, but we do need to regroup, and we need to pull together these crises. You know, we've seen recently, seen the post office scandal.
I'm afraid we have to leave it there. We've ran out of gas. Click, there goes the meter. Thank you very much, Sue Houseman, spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Well, joining now the panel to discuss this is the Labour peer Lord Glassman, who got locked in the House of Lords, I understand. But you're with us, living and breathing, and the former Conservative MP, Michael Brown. Lord Glassman, going to start with you. What do you make of the fact that Just Stop Oil have basically wound down because Ed Miliband is Mr. Just Stop Oil?
Well, I think it was judgments. It was legal judgments about the oil wells, and I really oppose that. I oppose that very much. I think we have to really invest in nuclear, but I do think that there's still a future for fossil fuels. And we desperately need to reindustrialise. We desperately need heat. We desperately need to bring the price of energy down. I think the whole future of the country depends on that. And this is completely ridiculous. And while it's a great thing that Just Stop Oil are winding down, I hope they wind down permanently.
So you hope that Just Stop Oil just stop. Michael Brown, you were saying to me earlier, you were the Member of Parliament for the Scunthorpe area. Indeed. Today, of course, we're seeing the tragedy, I believe, the tragedy now of Britain being the only G20 nation that can't smelt its own steel. And is that a part of this deindustrialisation that you get so passionate about, Lord Glassman? And it's being driven by this zealotry. We can't power our furnaces, electric or coke, because of either pollution or they're too expensive.
Well, I think that the lady, Sue Houseman, who spoke just now, giggling away, I can tell you who are not giggling tonight, those wonderful steel workers, and it's not just the 2,500 people who work directly at British Steel in Scunthorpe, which I had the privilege of representing in the 1980s, after I became the first Tory MP since God knows when in 1979. And we were able to keep that steelworks going for decades. And the reason it's closing is very simple. It's just Stop Oil. She says that she's got into the ear of Ed Miliband, and I suspect that is probably the case, Martin. One, she's probably given up the battle because the public were not on her side anymore. They were fed up with all the protests or closing the motorways and all the rest of that nonsense. But also, Ed Miliband, I'm afraid, who I like personally very much. She used to be a Member of Parliament in my old part of the woods in Doncaster. He, I'm afraid, has been responsible, unilaterally almost, for closing down that wonderful steelworks. And what it's going to mean is, as you alluded to just now, it's going to mean that the steel that we will import, probably from China, blast furnaces powered by coal, coal mining, coal power stations are opening every week virtually. So the world is going to be no cleaner. It's going to be just as dirty, except that those 2,500 people, you can probably treble that, 7,500 people in the greater Scunthorpe area who will also lose their jobs. They will have been watching her just now, and they wouldn't have been laughing and joking. They would have been wondering what the hell's going to happen to their futures. And it's so sad. And also, by the way, you need blast furnace produced steel in order to make certain products which need raw steel.
That's it.
You cannot make it just from, even if the electric arc furnaces are able to be built in Scunthorpe. I'd like to see that, but we need that steelworks as it is.
Just 6 weeks ago, the Labour government were at the Scunthorpe steel plant saying that British Steel would be used in their great rebuilding of the country. Today, they pulled the plug. Thank you to my panel, and thank you to Sue Glassman. Coming up next, the Sentencing Council. Coming up next, the Sentencing Council's woke new guidelines for illegal immigrants have been criticised as two-tiered. Shockingly, they suggest reducing prison sentences for first-time offenders to under 12 months, and that would allow them to dodge deportation.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, I just posted about the event on Facebook, basically. It snowed the night before, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if... It was purely for a joke. I posted it on the meme student page. Yeah, it was purely a joke. Just wouldn't it be funny if the two unis, Uni of the Polytechnic, had a big, massive sort of Lord of the Rings style battle at the park, snowball fight. And then I woke up the next day and just looked out the window because I live near the park and saw that hundreds of people were there. I was like, oh wow! But I really didn't expect it to be like that. And then they say, we want to come down to the station. I was like, okay, am I under arrest? Have I committed a crime? They don't answer that. They just say, we'd just like to come down to the station. And I was like, okay, do I have to? It's like, you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to make you eventually. Yeah, we had this really, really nasty, uncomfortable interview with the two officers that conducted it. Where they not only tried to antagonize me, incriminate me, but also blame me for deaths of thousands of people around the country.
Just give us that detail, Zen, because didn't they say to you about something about a number of people who had died of COVID since your snowball fight? Yeah.
Like, so nationally, they it was like, do you know in the business meetings where someone writes down a figure and they slide it across the table when you look? That's what they did. He wrote down like 3,000 or so people. Or he wrote down the number 3,000, slid it across the table and said, Mr. Watts, do you know what this number means? And I was like, no. Like, this is the number of people that since your snowball fight have died from COVID-19. How does that make you feel?
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, illegal immigrants who break the law could be handed get-out-of-jail-free cards under shock new sentencing guidelines. The Sentencing Council has drafted rules advising judges to issue sentences of less than 12 months for key immigration offences. How convenient, because that is the threshold for automatic deportation. Offences like sneaking into Britain illegally, using fake IDs or lying to border officials carry currently a maximum sentence of up to 10 years. But under the proposed new guidelines, criminals could walk free from as little as 6 months behind bars. It's astonishing. And is this just another example of Britain's soft-touch approach to migration? And should any criminal migrants be given the right to remain in the UK? Well, joining me now to cut through the grease and get to the truth is the barrister, Stephen Barrett. Stephen, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. This is incredible. The Sentencing Council under fire for their two-tiered sentencing recommendations a short while ago. But this takes the biscuit on two fronts. First of all, first-time offenders can wriggle off the hook. And secondly, they've watered down the sentencing that can be doled out. It's crazy. Tell us more.
It's anti-democratic. And what we're seeing now is the apex of these anti-democratic manoeuvres. Effectively, what you have in the Sentencing Council is a political body which is not accountable to voters. So your listeners and your viewers, they are not accountable to them. They use a sham process called consultation to make it look as though they are accountable. But of course, that's nonsense. Most of us don't know when consultations are happening. They're not heavily publicised. And the only people who will engage in consultations will be the people obsessed with increasing migration into this country. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of entries and submissions from NGOs and charities which profit from more migration into this country, saying what a jolly good idea it would be to reduce sentencing. But the fundamental core of this isn't about whether that's right or wrong, because I want listeners who fully support migration to know how wrong this is. I want them to feel it in their bones. This is not democratic. They're not accountable to anybody. One of the so you did some of the offences, and there are other offences. There's one that's supposed Parliament says 4 years, and they've said 9 months. Well, who on earth are they? And that's the politest way I can put that, Martin. But who on earth are they to think that they can overrule Parliament? A faceless group of non-entities that none of us have heard of, none of us know, and none of us can hold to account. Get rid of them.
Yeah, and Stephen, a point here is a first-time offence in Britain. Well, of course it's a first-time offence in Britain. They've just arrived. They may have multiple offences abroad. That isn't taken into account. But the 12-month threshold is one that will really, get the antennae twitching of people like yourself, because that's the threshold where you can be deported upon serving your sentence. This is legal tools for lawyers who are licking their lips at the prospects of using this loophole of keeping illegal immigrants in the country at British taxpayers' expense.
Yes, well, thank goodness that the country is waking up, Martin, because many years ago I would have had to come on a show like this and say that and point that out. But actually, everybody's spidey sense is already tingling. Everyone, even non-lawyers' antennae are already there. You can see through these people. They are utterly transparent. They want it under 12 months for one reason and one reason only, is that they don't want these people deported, because that is their personal political opinion. But there is simply no reason or basis why they get to trump the vast majority of this country. And if the vast majority of my fellow voters want something that I hate, then they still get it, because that's democracy. You know, we just don't get to override all of these things. And I'm glad that people like you are seeing through this utter sham, this utter farce. Please have no respect for these individuals. I consider the fact that you would do this an abuse of your position. I actually consider it deeply, deeply dishonourable. So I really am not going to kowtow, because unfortunately the Lady Chief Justice is on that committee. And I say unfortunately because I would very much like to have respect for the Lady Chief Justice. And it is deeply unfortunate for me that by her actions she makes that impossible.
Stephen Barrett, you're the best in the business. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much indeed. And huge nods of approval here in the studio from my panel, the Labour peer Lord Maurice Glassman and the former Conservative MP Michael Brown. Maurice Glassman, Lord, I want to start with you. You were nodding away vociferously there. I thought you were going to get some sort of RSI in your neck. You totally agree with this. It makes a mockery of what the public wants. And who are these people?
Absolutely, and much as it's against my principles to agree with any lawyer, I thought that was well put, what he was saying. This is a deep and long-standing thing. I'm saying to you, the Conservative government too was bound by this fear of offending lawyers and bound by very extreme judicial interpretations of the law, and then wrapped in with, we thought we were taking back control when we voted for Brexit, and that control we want is parliamentary sovereignty. Well, now, Parliament actually has said 4 years, and this lot are saying this is exactly an example of what's got to change. I mean, and fast.
Michael Brown, Stephen Barrett there was so moved. You were saying the Sentencing Council should be completely done away with.
Yes, we never had it when I was a Member of Parliament. I suspect it was probably a Conservative invention sometime in the last 14 years. And this is what happens. In my day, you didn't have any quango running anything. The Chancellor of the Exchequer set the interest rates. The Chancellor of the Exchequer didn't have an OBR. The Chancellor of the Exchequer stood or fell on the decisions that he took. Similarly, with the Home Secretary and the Lord Chancellor, Parliament, I mean, what the Sentencing Council is doing, it's a contempt of Parliament. I mean, to be fair to...
And of the electorate.
And of the electorate. To be fair to peers in the House of Lords and members of Parliament in the House of Commons, on all sides, to be fair to the Lord Chancellor herself, she did the other week when there was one of these individual instances where somebody was able to get round the rules by all the lawyers and the whole legal industry and was able to stay here because they'd committed an offence which was within the sentencing guidelines. Parliament passes the law which says if you are a foreigner over here and you commit a crime and you're sentenced to more than 12 months, you can be deported. So to have the Sentencing Council say, oh, well, let's just fiddle it so that he or she can't be deported, that is a contempt of Parliament.
Yeah, and it's a racket. I mean, it's a legal racket where they then go to judicial review and it's just more money for lawyers. I think one of the great things about AI, I think, is it's going to really decimate the legal profession because you can get judgments very cheaply and automatically. I think the whole legal profession needs to look at itself and the arrogance that they have in assuming that they have the right to overrule Parliament.
And is the point that Stephen Barrett made there, it's been around for a while, since Brexit, this idea that the judiciary has been captured by a mindset. AI would be a neat way around that because it wouldn't have a political viewpoint. Yeah, but is there a political bias to the Sentencing Council which is actually against the will of the people?
It's progressive. I mean, and that's the last thing you want to hear when you go to the doctor, right? It's progressive. This is what it does. It eats into you. So lawyers insidiously making extreme interpretations and then saying that that's human rights. They debase human rights. They don't want the rule of law. They want the rule of lawyers. That's the key thing to understand, Martin. That's their political agenda. They want us all paying them all the time.
But all the way through, we need to get rid, Martin, of these government ministers who subcontract decisions out to quangos.
Well, that's yeah, and I've got to say there's really, really good signs. I'm just saying this as someone who's prepared to criticise my government. I'm seeing that they're suddenly realising that they're hemmed in on all sides. Keir Starmer said the other day, we need to burn them down. We need to get rid of this system and take back control. And that's Parliament has got to do that.
Well, that'd be long, long overdue. Fantastic conversation, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. Thanks to my panel. And next up, Keir Starmer was in Paris today, chumming up to Zelensky and Macron to secure a so-called peacekeeping force, the coalition of the willing. But here's the point. Europe can't go to war without Trump's USA, and yet Trump see Europe as freeloading. So where does this leave the special relationship? That's next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Today, the Prime Minister met with French and Ukrainian leaders, along with representatives from over 30 other countries, to discuss the details of a peacekeeping force after a potential deal to end Russia's war on Ukraine. But of course, the elephant in the room is that Europe could never go to war without the help of Donald Trump's USA. Now, Keir Starmer must secure Donald Trump's support for the coalition and convince him that the peacekeeping force should be part of the ceasefire, especially after Putin rejected the idea of NATO troops in Ukraine. Now, Europe needs Trump, but Trump thinks Europe is freeloading. Now, where does this leave the special relationship? Well, joining me now is John Bolton, the former US ambassador to the United Nations. John, an absolute pleasure to have your esteemed company. May I ask you, what do Americans make of all this posturing of European leaders talking tough, channeling their inner Churchill? But we all know that we can't do this without America's help.
Well, that is probably true, and I certainly wouldn't count on it, because I don't think that Trump will provide the kind of backup or support role or security guarantees that many people are talking about. He has said as much, which of course doesn't guarantee that that would be his position tomorrow. But I don't think he has much interest at all in putting the United States even in a contingent position to have to do something if there is a violation of the ceasefire or subsequent truce by the Russians.
And the bottom line is Vladimir Putin has said he would never accept any kind of troops in Ukraine from the United Nations, even from the United Kingdom. So what are they doing, do you think, in Paris, this coalition of the willing? And is it an embarrassment to Donald Trump? And actually, would it make him angry about what's going on?
No, I don't think it will make him angry. I think what people in Europe need to ask themselves when they talk about a peacekeeping force is what precisely do they mean? And there may be discussions that I'm not aware of or news reports I haven't seen, but as best I can tell from over here, there's not been a clear decision on what the mission of the peacekeeping force is. Is the mission to prevent violations of the ceasefire? That is to say, will the peacekeepers fight to stop a violator from breaching the ceasefire and therefore use military force, let's say, against the Russians if they're the violators? Or are they going to be more like a traditional UN peacekeeping force who are observers, who watch the violation take place, but whose rules of engagement allow them to use force only in self-defense? They're two very different models with very different implications for the peacekeepers themselves. Are they going to expect to have to fight, or are they going to go to expect to watch? And I don't believe there's been a clear decision on that point by the European discussers.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Great guest, John Bolton, former US ambassador to the United Nations. A pleasure to have your company on GB News. Well, let's continue the conversation now with Jerry Gunster. He's a strategist and former advisor to members of Congress, as well as my panel, of course, the Labour peer Lord Maurice Glassman and the former Conservative MP Michael Brown. Let's start with you, if we can, Jerry. Thanks for coming here. I believe you have some fresh polling for us, because America is going through, has to be said, a bit of turmoil with tariffs and the markets. What are the polls telling you about Donald Trump's approval ratings right now?
Yeah, so we are 66 days today into the President Trump's session, and he has polling ratings right now at about 49%, somewhere between 47 and 49%. He's a little bit down from when he initially took office. He was over 50%. And I think that has a lot to do with the insecurity right now about where we are with tariffs. Independents right now seem to be his biggest problem, which is very typical of where we are in America. And it's very divided on partisan lines. If you ask Democrats what they think of President Trump, you're going to see numbers that are highly in the disapprove. And if you see the Republicans, the numbers are obviously very high in the approval rating. Now, there's a couple of things that are also telling in the most recent research. First of all, when President Joe Biden left office, if you asked people the direction of the country, do you think it is in the right direction or the wrong direction? That number was almost 70%, which should tell you you cannot win an election if you have disapproval at that high and direction of the country. It's 59% right now.
And Jerry, what about the current approval ratings of the Democrats? Where are they polling?
It is probably at a historic low. You are talking about 20 to 30% believe in the Democratic Party. And there are a lot of calls right now for Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, to maybe it's time for them to step aside.
The old regime must go.
The old regime, yes. So they are at a historically low position right now.
And that's got to be a huge... Let's bring my panel in now. Lord Maurice Glassman, I can hear you nodding again in approval there. It's got to be a huge problem for the Democrats. They don't seem to have a succession. They can moan about Donald Trump all they like. He won by a huge landslide in America, and there doesn't seem to be anybody to replace him.
OK, I think your point would be more powerful. You recognise it wasn't a huge landslide in terms of percentages. I mean, the House was very narrow. He really won. What he did was he really won. It wasn't an FDR landslide or anything like that, or even Obama first term. But what's happened is that Donald Trump's initiated a new era. It's an era of tariffs, it's an era of sovereignty, it's an era of reindustrialization, very much targeted at working class. And the Democrats have got absolutely nothing to say. This is a warning to all my comrades, is that you've got to get with this new era. You've got to really adjust to what is going on. The Democrats have shown they still think that by calling him a fascist or saying that he's going to violate abortion, they have dropped to historic lows.
Historic lows,
and also they've got nothing to say. I've never known it in my lifetime. They're utterly confused and bewildered.
OK, gentlemen, can I just play a clip that certainly got tongues wagging on social media? It's from yesterday. A British Sky journalist asked Marjorie Taylor Greene about leaked messages in Signal. Look at this astonishing response.
Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary...
What country are you... Wait, what country are you from?
From the UK.
OK, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Okay,
and no, you should care about your own borders.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you care about...
by migrants. No, do you care? OK, you're done.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
You know what? I don't care.
Service members fighting for your country.
I don't care about your fake news.
Jerry Guns,
yes.
I'm going to come to you first. Is it true that Americans don't give a bleep about what Brits think?
No, I don't believe that to be true at all. We live in a global economy, and we do a lot of trade with the United Kingdom. We care very much about it, and the special relationship actually is very true. Yeah. Now, one thing about what Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is from Georgia. She's from a very conservative area.
She's straight talking.
One of the things that you have to remember, though, is that there is a great deal of stress and emotion that's going on between the mainstream media and the Republican Party. And maybe they caught her at a bad moment, but that is what is happening with the Trump administration and the Republican leadership. There is a great deal of stress between them and the mainstream media.
OK, and just a quick apology there for the expletive, it was a live news moment. Morris Glassman, I'm going to you. You got something to say on this?
Yeah, so I was there. I was invited to the inauguration. I just want to say to all the viewers, have some mercy on me. This is what I was confronting all the time. That a lot of people there thought that our government and our country was a front for paedophile rings and Muslim rape gangs. You know, it was very... Now, what I then found when you hang into the conversation is exactly what Jerry said. There is a longing for a relationship with the UK, a really strong desire to make that special. But you've got to get through that and you've got to address that. So what I'm saying to you, Martin, is... You know, that was my holiday in DC.
I wonder, Michael Brown, though, if a lot of Brits watching that might think, actually, maybe there's a point. Maybe if the British media had been more obsessed with rape gangs, then we wouldn't be having this conversation now. A lot of the media did perhaps turn a blind eye to domestic issues.
Well, it's certainly the case that the BBC and, I'm sad to say, because it used to be an outstanding channel 20, 30 years ago, Sky News, cannot resist going more than an hour without suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, and they do meddle in America because it's an easy hit, and the media over here is catching that disease. Thankfully, GB News is immune from it. But as far as going on the relationship between Britain and America, again, I had the good fortune of being a member of Parliament in the era of the President Ronald Reagan. I had lunch with Ronald Reagan once in the Roosevelt Room with 12 others, an MP from each of the European countries from the Conservative parties, and Margaret Thatcher. She had a row with him from time to time. He was wanting to back Galtieri in Argentina, and she had to give him 1 or 2 lessons on that. He invaded Grenada, and Mrs. Thatcher would shout at him. So you can have a good relationship. You don't have to be supine, and that was an era when 2 leaders got on well together. To be fair, George W. Bush and Tony Blair had an outstanding relationship.
One point, if I could, Martin. First of all, President Trump loves the United Kingdom.
Yes.
There is no question about it. He has a great affinity for the monarchy.
OK, great. Let's end. Gentlemen, we have to end there. We've simply run out of time. Thank you very much. Great conversation. Jerry Gunzer, of course, Morris Glassman and Michael Brown. Thank you, gentlemen. Superb stuff. Now, coming up next, I'll be joined by GBNews presenter and author, best-selling author Andrew Pierce, to discuss the paperback release and new chapter in his best-selling book, Finding Margaret. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms moving their way eastwards across Europe, affecting regions around the Adriatic Sea, but there is some sunshine in places. The odd shower affecting Madeira and Tenerife, but after all the heavy rain from the beginning of March, Portugal, Spain seeing a much better week with plenty of sunshine on offer. But moving our way eastwards, these are going to be where we see those heavy showers and thunderstorms affecting the Adriatic Sea coasts and also Greece. But we'll see a steady improvement as we head into next week, but the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A brief spell of more unsettled weather to come over the next couple of days before the fine weather returns from Sunday. Rain moves through, followed by showers, and it's going to feel cooler, although with some sunny spells in between the downpours. Now, the rain I mentioned, that's being driven by this cold front, which is sinking southeast across the UK as we speak. It's going to arrive into the north and west of England as well as Wales during the evening, and then spread into the Midlands, East Anglia and southern counties of England by dawn. So a cloudy and wet start for many across the south first thing Friday. Brighter skies are spreading southeast in the wake of that front, and across much of the Midlands, the southwest of England and Wales will see those sunny spells return by 7 or 8 a.m. But the rain will take a bit longer to clear from East Anglia and the southeast. Showers, though, quickly following, and those showers would be particularly lively across western Scotland with the chance of hail and thunder, hill snow as well, because this air is a lot colder compared with the air that preceded the front. And we'll also see those showers to emerge to give longer spells of rain across western Scotland. Along with a gusty wind, all in all, it's going to feel disappointing in the northwest. But once the rain clears the southeast, after lunch, well, plenty of sunshine returns and showers will be few and far between across the south and southeast. 14 or 15 Celsius in the southeast, feeling a little cooler, not feeling quite as cold though as it will in the far northwest. It's a bright start for all of us on Saturday, and it stays that way across the Midlands, the southeast and some southern counties of England throughout the day, but elsewhere we'll see a band of rain moving in, again followed by some showers, but gradually through Sunday and Monday high pressure returns, bringing a return to fine weather.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now I'm joined now by a very familiar and special face of GB News viewers. Of course, it's Mr. Andrew Pearce. And last year, Andrew published a deeply moving and very personal book about the search for his birth mother, Margaret. And now he's back with an update to his best-selling book, Finding Margaret, where he shares new insights and reflections on that astonishing and emotional journey. You can see it on your screens there now. The paperback edition out. Andrew Pearce, Finding Margaret. I'm joined now by the man himself to talk about the new edition. Andrew, a pleasure to
Very nice to be with you, Mark.
to share a show with you. Maybe it should be a new double act. But on a serious point, Tell us, for those who haven't read the book, about your astonishing journey, and then about the latest updated chapter.
I was in an orphanage till I was nearly 3. Till I was 3, I was adopted by a wonderful couple called Betty and George. They already had 3 kids. I was brought up in a Swindon council estate very happily. Always lurking in the back of my mind sometimes was, what do I look like? What does my mum look like? What does my dad look like? My parents always told me I was adopted. I was Patrick James in the orphanage. That's all I knew. I didn't even know my surname. When I was 15, I found my mother upset reading an article by, I remember the columnist, Marge Proops. She'd written an article in the Daily Mirror, we're a Labour voting family, about why she thought it was right that adopted kids like me could track down their birth parent because the Labour government had changed the law. I read a letter to Marge Proops saying, nah. My mum and dad, my real mum and dad, who needs the blood parent? It was published in the Daily Mirror, much to my embarrassment. But, you know, a few years later, my first job, it was as if my birth mother was calling me. My first job in newspapers was the Gloucestershire Echo in Cheltenham. Where was the orphanage? Nazareth House, Cheltenham. Wow. My second job, Birmingham Mail. Now, I assumed that Patrick was born in Bristol, my birth mother lived in Bristol. She didn't, she lived in Birmingham. So I was working on the Birmingham Mail. I could have passed her in the street. When I got to about 47, 48, I decided to go for it, track her down, not least because I thought I wanted her to know I was OK. Yeah. I found her, complicated, difficult, and when I found her, I'd assumed, of course, that my birth mother was 16, 17, 18 when she had me. Martin, my amazement, she was a few weeks from her 35th birthday. Wow, and that would be quite an old mum back in those days. Back in those days. There's an extraordinary story in the book about who is or couldn't be my birth father. So the hardback came out very successfully, and then I got a letter from a lady called Philomena. Think of the film Philomena, starring Judi Dench, about that Irish lady who tried to find her adopted son. Philomena said she'd known me in the home, and she's provided some photographs. They're quite extraordinary. They're of Patrick in the home, barely a year old. And I knew I was looking at myself for the first time. I'd never seen photographs of myself before the age of 3, when my parents first started considering adopting me.
Andrew, we've got a quick moment. Tell us about the updated chapter and some astonishing extra details.
Well, so we've got the photographs of the little boy, but also I found a report which revealed that the orphanages that I was in, Cheltenham and Bristol, there was a lot of abuse by the nuns, the Sisters of Nazareth. And if you wet the bed, and I'm afraid I was a bedwetter, one of the punishments I discovered was you were put in a still bath, and then they held your arms from side to side and poured buckets of water over your head. They wrapped urine-stained sheets around your legs. But it's not a gloomy book, Martin. It's an uplifting book and cheerful book. And what it tells you most of all is Mum and Dad who adopted me were the best I could ever have hoped for.
Great. Finding Margaret. Hold it there. There it is. Get a copy of that. Now,
Can they see it? There it is.
There it is.
Very good.
Next is State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. Matt, what's on your menu?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot coming up tonight, Martin. Now, Europe is moving right on migration and asylum. Well, why is the UK still a soft touch? We'll be looking at that. We've got a top demographer coming in to tell us, should we be relying on mass immigration, or should instead we be boosting UK birth rates? And if we're going to do that, how do you do that? I'm also going to be talking to somebody from the Alternative for Germany, the big anti-establishment rebellion over there. And just lastly, the latest on two-tier justice. I know you've been talking about it, some of the changes regarding deportations. We're going to be looking at that with the top panel tonight.
Supers of Matt Goodwin, State of the Nation next. Andrew Pearce, a pleasure to have your company. One more time, hold it up. Finding Margaret out in paperback. Grab yourself a copy. I'll be back tomorrow, 3 till 6. Up next, State of the Nation. Next, here's your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A brief spell of more unsettled weather to come over the next couple of days before the fine weather returns from Sunday. Rain moves through, followed by showers, and it's going to feel cooler, although with some sunny spells in between the downpours. Now, the rain I mentioned, that's being driven by this cold front, which is sinking southeast across the UK as we speak. It's going to arrive into the north and west of England, as well as Wales during the evening, and then spread into the Midlands, East Anglia, and southern counties of England by dawn. So a cloudy and wet start for many across the south first thing Friday. Brighter skies are spreading southeast in the wake of that front, and across much of the Midlands, the southwest of England and Wales, we'll see those sunny spells return by 7 or 8 a.m. But the rain will take a bit longer to clear from East Anglia and the southeast. Showers, though, quickly following, and those showers would be particularly lively across western Scotland, with the chance of hail and thunder, hill snow as well, because this air is a lot colder compared with the air that preceded the front. And we'll also see those showers to merge to give longer spells of rain across western Scotland, along with a gusty wind. All in all, it's going to feel disappointing in the northwest. But once the rain clears the southeast, after lunch, well, plenty of sunshine returns, and showers will be few and far between across the south and southeast. 14 or 15 Celsius in the southeast, feeling a little cooler. Not feeling quite as cold, though, as it will in the far northwest. It's a bright start for all of us on Saturday, and it stays that way across the Midlands, the southeast, and some southern counties of England throughout the day. But elsewhere, we'll see a band of rain moving in, again followed by some showers, but gradually through Sunday and Monday, high pressure returns, bringing a return to fine weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and